Will AI replace humans? Can we trust anything we see online, knowing it could be a deepfake? Many of us have been asking ourselves these questions as we see artificial intelligence and disinformation become growing parts of our everyday lives. Good evening. My name is Maia Mazurkiewicz, and welcome to the Anatomy of Disinformation. Technology is developing rapidly, and so is our anxiety over AI. For us humans, fear of change is a natural condition, and feeling like we are not in control makes that fear even worse. But we can also use tech to counter disinformation and make our lives easier. We'll look at some examples of that in today's show. Generative AI and other new technologies are developing at breakneck speed. And while they are often exploited by malign actors, they can also be used for good. Do the benefits of AI outweigh the risks? And what are regulators doing to protect us? Our first guest is here to help us answer these questions.
Filip Konopczyński, AI and digital technology regulation expert at the Polish Ministry of Digital Affairs. Head of Analysis and Research Department at the NASK National Research Institute in Warsaw. In his capacity as a lawyer and anthropologist, he previously worked for IDEA's NCBR, the Panoptykon Foundation, the Polish Commissioner for Human Rights, and OKO.press, and was a fellow at the German Marshall Fund of the US and Visegrad Insight.
Filip, welcome to the Anatomy of Disinformation. Thank you so much for joining us. And today we are talking about the artificial intelligence and generative AI in particular as well. You are dealing with regulations and looking at how we can protect ourselves from the perspective of the governance and government in order to the changes that we are seeing in terms of the new technologies. But what actually is the generative AI, as you are saying it from this perspective?
So you decided to kick off things with one of the hardest questions to answer. Well, fortunately, as regulators, we don't really have to define the precise technologies. The European Union, in the recently passed AI Act, does not define AI as such. It defines an AI systems and, in certain cases, AI models. So that's something more handy, something we can actually operationalize. And that's precisely the case with deepfakes. So as we all know, we're dealing with a new form of communication technology that allows us to achieve goals that previously have been were possible mainly for huge CGI studios in Hollywood and other show business venues. So right now, the technology has democratized the use of these tools, and pretty much any one of us can just log into some kind of application and generate a completely fictional or vaguely based on reality piece of image, audio recording, or a video. And in many cases, it represents real people, or maybe uncannily real people, or manipulated images of people that remind us of real persons. And it has many, many angles. From the legal standpoint, it's hard to find one wonderful tool, one piece of provision that could either ban it or tame it in a way that it serves us and doesn't work against us. The approach that the European Union has taken can be described as twofold. First of all, there is the older piece of legislation, which is the Digital Service Act, DSA, which in a nutshell mandates the service providers and the online platforms to moderate content that might be illegal, harmful, or fake. So that's the old story. The newest thing on the block, so to say, is the AI Act, which is coming into force over extended periods of time, but it's which is important for our discussion. It actually defines deepfake, and it defines it quite broadly. So it does not have to be a human that you're creating an image of. It can be an object or an institution. And whenever you do that, as a user, you're mandated to disclose that it's a deepfake. So all the social media users, everybody posting online, journalists, artists, will be mandated to disclose this information. We'll see how it works. I'm absolutely sure that, but that's not all. It's the AI Act also tackles the deepfake problem from the developer and provider point of view, which is more technical, but basically it requires the providers of such AI systems or models some technical, machine-readable patterns or other forms of standards that could allow other machines and detectors to find out that we're handling with deepfake. But this is all very technical. You know.
Very technical indeed. But in general, is the technology that already has been developed before, right? So basically, we could see it in the Star Wars movies or Harry Potter, and right now, pretty much every single one of us is able to use it, right? ChatGPT, as the Gen AI, was one of the first marketing tool that was pretty much used, and public was informed about it, right? Have there been already worked in terms of the regulations before that, or is it actually something that came into force and into work after this period of time?
Luckily, the European Union started working on horizontal AI regulation already, I think it's 2018. It started off with a white paper on AI. Back then, everybody on both sides of the Atlantic was criticizing the usual Brussels bureaucrats for trying to regulate the technology that isn't here yet. Well, after 3 years, in 2021, the first proposal, the first draft was put on a table by the European Commission, and then the magic happened when Sam Altman and all the brilliant minds, some of them are Polish, actually many of the founders and the leading technologists of OpenAI are of Polish descent.
We have great programmers and people actually dealing with AI. Also, the gold medal recently in the AI Olympics.
Kind of big
we
in
are
the
really
deepfake,
good in this. Yeah.
Kind of big also in the deepfake venue, in the deepfake market. I'll get to that in a moment. So we were prepared as Europeans. There was something to work on already. But a lot of changes have been made to the draft, and the regulation around deepfakes and large language models, as the AI Act calls it, general purpose AI models, well, were pretty much drafted at the very last stages of the negotiation legislative process. So we'll see how it works out. We're in the middle of this big thing, and Poland is actually one of the first countries to propose the first draft of the piece of legislation, a bill that's going to address some of the issues required by the AI Act. And we're quite enthusiastic about it. It's a very hard work, and no one has ever done that before. So, but we're working day and night, and we're also inviting
the most crucial part of it that you're.
Well, you have to establish a supervisory market, because it's easy to ban something. And when we're talking about AI, deepfakes or disinformation, we don't want to over-regulate it. And very often when we discuss issues such as deepfakes, we tend to put on the dark lenses, and we're kind of focusing on the downside of these technologies, which are very serious, and we can all imagine AI-driven campaigns with fake candidates or real
candidates. Well, we are seeing that already at the US campaign in particular, but also in Taiwan and in the elections of the European.
So that's one piece of one field where this technology can be applied. But I think no one would really want to ban a technology that allows artists, creators, even people working in marketing, teachers, educators, children, to just play around with it, create new images, new videos that do not necessarily harm anybody.
And it also supporting us humans, right, in many particular ways. So also it's important to use the new technologies for good. Does the act and your work as well as the government, I'm asking here, is supporting development of the new technology, artificial intelligence in particular, for good?
Well, for better or worse, I'm not the spokesperson of the government, but talking about the team that I work with, we try to combine both aspects of the matter. It's not enough to regulate, although I'm very much against the line of argumentation that you cannot regulate new technologies. We always have been doing that. We need regulation on cars. We need regulation on chemical products. We need regulation on medical devices, and so is the case with the AI. But the reason why some countries are doing better, it's not because of the lack or high level of regulation. It's a question of funding, and that's what we all as Europeans have to be working better on. And I'm glad that discussions taking place in Brussels, for instance, surrounding the publication of the Mario Draghi paper on competitiveness in the EU, are trying to get into the right direction, where the EU tries to follow in the footsteps of USA and China, in actually stimulating the demand, stimulating the supply, and putting basically more public and private funds to the very innovative AI sector.
Thank you so much for joining us and for the insightful discussion.
Thanks for having me.
In the hands of bad actors, AI can be a big threat to our information space. Let's take a look at some examples of how artificial intelligence has been used for nefarious purposes.
Artificial intelligence gives a lot of opportunities to strengthen the disinformation narratives, and one of them, and probably the most popular one or widely discussed, is so-called deepfakes. There are examples of attacking the Moldovan prime minister, because Moldova is like the battleground of the political warfare, political aggression of Russian Federation, and there was like the Maia Sandu in the deepfake supporting the pro-Russian party.
Я представляю, как это вообще можно носить и так жить. Любимые мои молдаване.
We need also to remember that AI is able to generate profile pictures. So if we wanted to create, for example, a false profile in social media, which is a part of the building infrastructure for the disinformation campaigns, now it's much easier, because if you put a picture either on the X, Facebook, Instagram, it looks like that this profile is real. But also we have ChatGPT and other this kind of the tools. The ChatGPT is used, for example, for students, is also used by the journalists, so it's also naturally used for the disinformation narratives and campaigns. In the Polish infosphere, there's a lot of disinformation. In the case of the floods, the first disinformation which appeared when we knew that the flood is coming. There was no flood in Poland. There was disinformation that Czech Republic would flood us. It was surprising. This is anti-Czech narrative. ChatGPT could be a very useful tool for work, for research. Every tool is rather neutral, but there are some attempts, for example, to stop using these tools. On the other hand, we have TikTok or we have Telegram with a lot of the users which are not using these procedures. For example, especially Telegram here is a problematic one.
Today marks an important milestone for AI in Europe as the European Artificial Intelligence Act enters into force.
The European Union is the first organization which drafted and implemented the EU AI Act, which of course is far from perfection, but it's a good starting point to impose some regulation on artificial intelligence. Also, with the regulation, we have the Digital Service Act, which somehow constrained the social media from spreading disinformation and imposing new regulation on them to fight more effectively with disinformation.
As in life, what impact a new technology will have depends on our ethics and values. A tool can be both harmful and beneficial, even simultaneously. With the money being poured into developing generative AI, where do we stand in the AI race? We'll find out with our next guest.
Dr. Agnieszka Mikołajczyk-Bareła, researcher, programmer, and AI expert, currently works as a senior AI engineer developing large language models at Chapter. Previously, as NLP team leader at VoiceLab AI, she led the team that designed and trained the TRURL LLM-based chatbot, led the Hear AI project, focused on sign language modeling, and the Detect Waste project to detect waste in the environment. She defended her PhD at Gdańsk University of Technology on detecting and reducing the impact of errors and biases in AI data and models, one of the fundamental ethical aspects of artificial intelligence.
Agnieszka, thank you so much for coming to the studio. I know that you came from Gdańsk today, that's great. And we really needed you in the studio because we are talking today about AI and what actually AI is in terms of the connection with disinformation as well. And you are a developer. You actually work on the machine learning and working on learning those machines to actually become the generative AI or large language models. So if you can tell us a bit how you actually work on this and how we can understand it better.
Yeah, that's a great question. So when we talk about machine learning, we usually talk about supervised learning. And supervised learning is a method contains a method of training the models by showing them examples of inputs and outputs that we want to have. So the model has to figure out what exactly to do to get this output. So for example, we might pass a radiology image as an input and get as an output prediction if there is a cancer there or not.
Okay, so it actually can support different works that we are doing as humans, right? Right now you are talking about the radiology. So what are the examples that you can show us or tell us of use of the AI for good?
Oh, there are so many. First of all, I love AI in medicine. So as I already mentioned, AI can be used for radiology imaging, for detection of cancer, for classification of cancers. So for example, how exactly? Let's imagine you go to a hospital, you get your mammography image, and then input of an image goes to the neural network, and we got a prediction classification. So the models learned by seeing thousands or 10,000s of images that were already correctly recognized in the past. So we know that those are perfect examples. And models take it into the input, learn the characteristics, like what makes cancer a cancer, and then can use that to classify new images that comes in.
And why it's important? Because basically, indeed, right now, a problem with cancer, it's a huge one, right? In Poland and elsewhere. And you are working as well on it, on saying how the AI can support medicine.
Yeah, exactly.
Itself?
It's only in 2020, 6,500 women in Poland died because of breast cancer. So speeding up the process and helping women get very first diagnosis will help the treatment as well, right? So another approach we could use AI to is prepare a bot that would call those women and convince them to do this mammography, right? So in Poland, it's estimated that around 35% of women only do those mammography tests. So if we can convince them, maybe those cancer rates will go down.
So you can basically learn machine to make phone calls to the patients, right? But that's also a bit scary because quite a lot of cases right now that we hear over is that a granddaughter or a daughter is calling to the senior person and asking for money. So you can tell as well if what we can do with it. Is there any particular way of actually building the awareness, or perhaps maybe AI can also support in this sense?
Yes, definitely. But I would start thinking that AI is only a tool, right? we could say the same thing about the telephone itself. Telephone can be used for good cases and for bad cases. It's same for AI. And I heard that there are ways of classifying fake news, for example, or detecting if the text was generated by a human or by a machine, and the same for voice, for images. So it's definitely possible. Probably not in every case, but it's possible.
We are in here talking about disinformation and saying how disinformation is impacting people, but AI is also deepfake, right? Deepfake is based on the AI machine. And are there also different AI models that can check whether it is AI or not, if we are looking, for example, in the social media?
Yeah, definitely. Currently, I'm working a lot with large language models. And here, there is something called perplexity. And perplexity is a measure, basically, how surprised a model is when it sees a text. So when a model is very much surprised, it means that it was not generated by a model. So this is one of the ways how we can detect if the text was generated by a model or written by a human, because humans sometimes make mistakes, and it's natural. And LLMs are more likely to be perfect. So it's easy to notice those, exact sentences that a model produced and understand that it was produced by a model. So this measure is called perplexity.
So you're learning the machine, right, to be perfect and more perfect. So if you're seeing the problem that they are kind of generating, then you can fix it, right? That's how it works?
Exactly. During my PhD, I was actually working with models to correct errors. So I worked on the skin lesion classification example, so classifying skin lesions into malignant and benigns. And during my PhD thesis, I noticed that the skin classification images, dermoscopic images with black frames, are correlated with the malignant class. So I conducted experiments. I added the frame to an image without a frame, right? And I tested how it's classified. And it was classified as malignant instead of benign, just after adding a frame. But you know what? We can mitigate that. And one of the methods I proposed is adding the frame randomly during this training I explained before. So during showing those examples, like what is correct and what is not, just randomly add frames, and then this correlation was disturbed.
I have last one question. Why AI is good, and why actually people should start to understand that, as you said, some time ago we were afraid of fonts, right? And right now it's pretty much with the AI. So from your perspective, why it's good?
AI is a great tool that can change many lives. It can help also with inclusion. For example, for deaf people, there are avatars that use sign language so they can communicate. And the other way around, translating the sign language into text. We have applications, for example, Google Lens, or other applications for blind people who can use camera to navigate the environment, even read the expiration date at home from the meal. So this is great. There is AlphaFold that can support biologists and help them create new medicine.
Thank you so much. There's so much good possibilities to use AI. Thank you so much for joining us and showing us this perspective. And I hope that we're going to see as well a bit better and understand what machine learning is thanks to this discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
To wrap up, let's take a look at a short definition of generative AI.
How are generative AI deepfakes typically used? Generative AI refers to deep learning models that can generate high-quality content based on the data they were trained on, resembling original work. Capable of generating everything from text to images and videos, generative AI is increasingly being used to produce deepfakes. Videos in which a person's face or body is digitally altered to make them appear to be someone else, typically with malicious intent or to spread false information.
Maybe one day we'll have virtual avatars hosting our TV shows. But I, for one, believe in the value of human connection. So thank you for joining us today. Next week, we'll talk about how disinformation is leveraged during crises and disasters. Until then, keep calm and think deeply.